The Kansas Senate discussing a resolution that would ban abortion at any stage across the state. If the resolution passes, it would go right to the ballot so that you can vote on it. The resolution is proposed as an equal rights amendment, intending to change the Kansas Constitution to explain men and women's inalienable rights from conception. This added inclusion of conception would mean that abortion is banned at any stage. Currently, abortion is legal up to 22 weeks in the state of Kansas.